Hey guys, History Behind the Warrior, and today I'm going to bring you something a little bit different to what I normally do. Now, obviously I'm known for doing my documentaries about different fighters from different fighting games, but this segment of the week is going to be something that's quite different to what you normally see from me. This segment hasn't really got a name. I think I'm just going to call it HBTalks for the time being, but hey, until I can find a different name, that's what's just going to be called. These episodes will kind of feed into the History Behind the Warrior series, as this stuff is kind of topical and I can kind of weave in and out and say whatever I really want here. Plus I can help educate some of you guys about fighting games a tiny bit more who haven't quite gotten into them. So I thought a great way to start off this series was to talk about how canon kind of works in fighting games. I'll first be starting off with what is canon in some places, how you can tell the difference between that and semi-canon, and things that have been completely retconned. Now right from the get-go, let's start talking about how canon works. Now for me to talk about this, I need a story that is already completely established. So to my own credibility and knowledge of the Mortal Kombat series, I'll be using that as the example. However, what I say can often vary between games, so I'm going to try and cut it down and make it probably as loose as possible. So that way it's quite flexible to fit in with a different story. Now if a fighting game has a main story, that is essentially canon, unless it collides with something else or has a joint ending. This could be referred to as semi-canon. Don't worry, we'll get to that in a bit. Obviously you can get the main gist of the story from playing the campaign. However, if you wish to explore more of that current universe that you are interested in, it's always important to look online on forums and even the Wikipedia page, as you may watch something like Mortal Kombat Legacy and consider it canon. Which brings me to another topic of outside media. When I talk about outside media, I'm talking about animated films and real life action films based off the actual game. These 9 times out of 10 are actually non-canon. However, there are a few exceptions to this, as there's some stuff like the Jury OVA that was created for Street Fighter 4 and Street Fighter Assassin's Fist, which more or less pays homage to the history of the Street Fighter series. Now we can talk about the stuff that gets a little bit complicated with canon, and it seems only right to start off with Arcade Towers, as most of these endings do show foreshadowings for the next game. A great example of this is actually Mortal Kombat X. During Kung Jin and Kung Lao's tower endings, it involves the two coming together and helping Kung Lao come over his revenant control. The reason why this is a bit more justified is because it's not just a single character's ending, it's two. This in turn can give the source a little bit more credibility, but at the end of the day it's ultimately up to the writers for the next game to decide what they decide to take from the previous game into the canon. Now hopefully I haven't fried your brain, as we're going to get a little bit more complicated with this now. This is ultimately what I like to discuss as colliding canon. That sounds like a really cool super move. A great example of this would actually be Charlie Nash in the Alpha series, as now it has been reported that Charlie Nash has officially died in Street Fighter Alpha 2. However, he does return in Street Fighter Alpha 3, being on a main mission with Chun-Li and Guile. Now like I said, this is where the canon kind of goes crazy. Charlie going AWOL in Alpha 3 is one of the main reasons Guile's also in the game, as he's attempting to help his friend destroy Shadowloo. Guile's appearance in Alpha 3 is also canon, which does raise a lot of questions then if Charlie died in Alpha 2, which means Guile was missing a large section of his history that involves him being involved in Alpha 3. It gets really confusing. But this again is the perfect example of canon colliding with each other, as there's too many ideas on the table and they just don't mesh well together, because Nash has died so many times in the series and it's always been done differently, even in the Udon comics. But in saying that, it's very rare to come across a character that essentially breaks canon completely like him. Now obviously there's probably more answers behind this. I currently don't know them. Maybe some of you guys do, and if you don't, hopefully Capcom will explain it a little bit more when they bring out the story. Now we come to my favourite section, the non-canon stuff. Now non-canon stuff can often be stated, usually online. It's always important to look it up, but there's some stuff that you can differentiate from actually being canon and being non-canon. Once again, this can vary from game to game, but non-canon stuff that's always in fighting games will always and always will be arcade endings. Now I don't mean to contradict myself by any means, but you need to understand that it's either foreshadowing or completely non-canon. A great example of this is Shinnok's ending in Mortal Kombat X. We all know what really happens to him, it's just as the arcade ending so happens to have him win and become the one being. This one needs to be stated as well, because I get this a lot. Guest characters are pretty much 9 times out of 10 completely non-canon, as mostly the guest characters are brought in within the game to draw an audience from the outside community. A great example of this is Soul Calibur 4 with the Star Wars series. Another perfect example of non-canon material material is actually comic books, as normally characters can be portrayed a different way with each writer. So due to the constant up and down flux of certain characters, it should be considered very non-canon. And finally, the last one, and I brought it up earlier, are movies. A very large portion of fighting game movies are 100% non-canon. Not only because they're so fucking bad, but they're obviously outside media, they're not in-game content, and that already in itself makes it non-canon. But like I said earlier, there's always an exception to this, and you do get a few that actually stick to the source material. But this has more or less summed up my own approach towards canon, and people can perceive these endings in different ways, which is completely understandable. But I made this video to kind of help push people in the right direction, so that way they don't initially confuse themselves. Plus, I'm hoping this video will stop people like typing into the comment section saying, "You forgot this character's tower ending." It's like, no, there's a reason I left it out. Plus, I'm hoping this will stop a lot of arguments blowing up in the comment section. But anyway guys, here's been the first episode of HBTalks. I'm sorry if this was a little bit full on for the first episode, but this is the way I kind of am when I'm talking about video games or fighting games in general. Now in saying that, this weekly segment, like I said, is very loose, so I can kind of talk about whatever I really want and what's on my mind. But I also like talking to you guys and listening to what you guys have to say. So in saying that, type in the comments below what topic you guys want to see me talk about. If it be the state of a certain game on a release, new game mechanics, or what I think the future will hold for a certain gaming franchise. So hopefully if you guys like this kind of talking debate video, give this video a thumbs up so that way I know to make more. Now as always guys, please comment, like, subscribe and share this video with everyone you know. Take care and I will see you guys next time.